All right, everybody, welcome back. This is the Horn Takes podcast, your rough around the edges Texas sports talk destination. That's pretty much all we do around here is talk about Texas sports. And we do a little bit of other stuff on TikTok and maybe a little bit of other stuff on Twitter. But mostly it's Texas sports, and it's always rough because I'm just a foul-mouthed dude. So I'm your host, Sean Redfern. It is Friday, folks, and we love them all. We love every single Friday for various reasons. Usually, my wife and I do a T-Man. That's Tex-Mex and margaritas on Friday. Friday signifies the opening game of the weekend series in baseball, which is exciting during college baseball. Friday is also Friday Night Lights, if you're looking at football, but it's also game day eve for college football, which we absolutely 1,000% love around the Horn Takes podcast. So we love Fridays. It's the beginning of the weekend. There's just so many great things about Fridays, but this Friday in particular is a very, very special Friday for my family because tonight is our son's last regular season baseball game ever in his high school career. He's not going to go play college baseball. So this is it, regular season-wise. It won't be his last game. They're playing tonight for the district title. They are playing a team out of Abilene Wiley. They have the exact same record as this team in district, and they have split the series so far this season. So it's 1-1. Tonight's the rubber match. Going to be an exciting game. Abilene Wiley has a really, really good record. They've only lost 4 games all season. We have lost a little bit more, but we've played in a lot of really tough tournaments early on in the season, and I don't think they played quite the same competition in the tournament season that we did. So anyway, it'll be a great game. We had senior night last Friday night, probably because I think probably the coaches knew that this one was going to come down to tonight's game more than likely. Abilene Wiley's been ranked in the top 25 probably a couple times this season so far. I believe we've been ranked in the top 25 at certain parts of the season. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't follow it that closely. But yeah, man, we had senior night last Friday night, so that was interesting. My son texted me at like 2:00 in the afternoon on Friday and says, "Dad, you got to be here at 4:30 for the father-son catch." And I'm like, "What the hell's the father-son catch? I've never heard of this before." It's a deal they do. And so I went up there, went out on the field with my son, got to play catch one last time with him. I'm getting a little choked up. This is a funny thing because Mom has been a rock through all this, and Mom's usually not a rock. I'm usually the rock. She's usually the wreck. And for some reason, Mom's been a rock during all of this senior night stuff. And I've been the one that's been a wreck. So anyway, we had a nice pregame ceremony. We did a framed jersey in a nice little shadow box thing. So man, just end of an era for us, and this is our last high schooler. So yeah, man, we're gonna be empty nesters almost officially here pretty quick. Hopefully they do. Hopefully they go on a nice little playoff run. Generally, this baseball program does. Been just outside of making it to the state tournament a bunch of times here in the last few years. So, yeah, end of an era for us. Very special for our family. Braden, if you listen to this, you hear this, it's been a blast. Tonight we'll talk about Texas baseball. Texas baseball, like, what is going on with them right now? We'll have Texas football. There's been a whole lot of stuff going on about Texas football. And then I just kind of recently got back into an old hobby that I had when I was a man in junior high, and it's not what some of you guys are thinking. Y'all get y'all's minds out of the gutter. Check us out on Twitter. Check us out on TikTok. Check us out on YouTube at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, you can do that at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com, or you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, almost. Probably not anywhere you listen to podcasts, but we're on Apple Podcasts. We are on iHeart. We are on Spotify. If you just search for Horn Takes on the interwebs, you're going to find it more than likely. give us a listen. If you like to, I mean, some of you guys, I know you drive around in your cars all day long. Some of you guys might be truckers. Some of you guys may just like to sit at the desk and pretend you're working and really be listening intently to a really badass like sports talk deal all day long. I could be that for you guys. So check us out. Texas baseball. Let's get into it. So Texas baseball, 25-17 on the season so far, 11-7 in Big 12 play. That's good enough to be tied with Oklahoma State and West Virginia for the second spot in the Big 12. So it's been a rough season. I think you ask any Texas fan, even the super Texas fans, like, Occupy Left Field, that guy. Nash Talks Texas is a big Texas baseball fan. And even those guys have just been like, it's up and down, up and down. It seems like you just never know what you're going to get out of this team. But don't look now. All of a sudden, they're on a 3-game winning streak, and I'm trying to think. It's happened. It's happened this season. I just can't remember the specific last time this team was 3-0. I mean, this team loses every Friday night. That's just a given. That's what they do in Big 12 play. I don't think they've won a Friday night. Oh, yeah, they have. They won a Friday night against Tech, and that may be it. And I'm not even kidding. That may be the only time they've won a Friday night was against Texas Tech. So they always lose the Friday night game. They've dropped a bunch of midweek games, in some cases just embarrassing fashion. Absolutely no Texas team should ever lose games to the teams they've lost games to, but it's happened. And then they've done some really good stuff. I mean, they go up to Lubbock and they take on a Tech team that I think at the time they were ranked in the top 25, good hitting team, and they just bombed them out of the park basically. So, and in a lot of cases they've lost that Friday night game. I think the only series that they have lost this year in Big 12 play was against BYU of all teams. Freaking BYU. They lose the Friday game. They win. Did they win? I think they might have won Saturday and then they lost Sunday. I don't remember exactly, but regardless, they've come back from these Friday night losses and won games, won the series almost every time. So, yeah, crazy stuff. Crazy stuff for this Texas baseball team all season long. But now we're on a win streak, and we're on a win streak because the team has been pitching really, really well this last week. They had a great week. So we started off with the TCU series. They dropped the first game 5-0. Max Grubbs went 6 1/3 in that game. Had a really good outing. I think he only gave up 2 runs in that game. So that's a good outing by most standards, right? They win game 2 7-0. Ace Whitehead goes 6. Cade O'Hara comes in and finishes off with 3 innings of his own. Cade O'Hara is an interesting guy. Cade O'Hara was a second baseman last year, and he's been asked to come out of the bullpen a few times this year, and for the most part has pitched really, really well for Texas. And then they go on to win game 3, 2-1, real close game. LBJ gets another weekend start, and that one, for those of you that don't know, you should know, LBJ was the Friday night guy, leading, all the way up until the last couple of weekends, and he's just kind of got on the struggle bus. But he pitched really well Sunday against TCU, 6 1/3. Gage Bain comes in, finishes it off 2 2/3. So we've gone from using 7,000 pitchers, using every single arm that's in the bullpen over a weekend, to last weekend, very, very efficient. So if the pitching can continue to give, if the starting pitching can continue to give innings the way they gave against TCU, this team has a chance. I think the bullpen's light. There's not a ton of great arms. There's certainly not all the way across the board great arms in that bullpen. But there are enough guys that are consistent enough that I think if the starters can give them some deep innings, there's enough guys in that bullpen to come in and sort of platoon it if they need to. So yeah, they win the game. They win the series against TCU, which we said, 3 weeks ago, heading into the Houston series and then headed into this TCU series, we said we got to get those series because those are the 2 worst teams in the Big 12. And the only other team that's that bad is BYU, and BYU took a series from Texas down in Austin. So You got to get the ones you're supposed to get, right? So we said those were super important deals. They got it done. And then they go into a midweek against UTA. Not a great team. But they do it anyway. They win that one 11-0, 6 home runs. Max Ballou had 2 of those, and they were bombs, folks. So, yeah, man, it's like the bats are getting a little bit hot right now. The pitching's doing really good. Charlie Hurley went 4 innings in that game, and then it was platoon style the rest of the way out, which is good. It is good to get your guys experience, but you want to do that stuff in a midweek game that you're winning 11-0. You don't want to have to do it when the pressure's on and somebody's already walked 2 guys and there's only 1 out. And you're only up by a run, or maybe you're not even up by any runs. That's not when you want to get these guys some experience off the bump. So winning that game 11-0 against whoever, I don't give a damn who they were playing, a high school team, super important for Texas because, again, they'd really, really struggled in those midweek matchups. And again, not great teams they've been struggling with. So last week's show was called Is the Party Over for David Pierce? Because, man, they were looking like in a rough spot. And Texas fans, we are ridiculously spoiled. I know this. You know this. Everybody knows this. We kind of have stupid expectations. And maybe kind of have is being kind of nice, because I think we just do have dumb expectations sometimes as Texas fans. But a lot of people, even a lot of people that were kind of like, man, let's give them a break, were really, really just kind of fed up with David Pierce last weekend. Losing a midweek and just not looking great against U of H. And despite winning that series, I mean, they had to score, what did they score? 8 runs, 7 runs in the top of the 9th inning to win that game on Sunday against Houston. So it was kind of it happened. But how often does that happen? It was 7-2, 7-4 maybe. Actually, I think it was 7-4 going into the top of the 9th inning. They score 8 runs. Maybe it was 7-5. It doesn't matter. This Texas team just doesn't come from behind that much. And so it was definitely one of those, off the wall type things that happened. So is the party over? I mean, we talked about it last week. I said, I think it's probably over. Like I said, I just don't see this team. I feel like the wheels are off. You got to hand it to the guys. They keep battling. Is it enough? I don't know. We'll all find out over the course of the next few weeks. At this point, they're in the tournament. They could play themselves out of the tournament. I think the interesting thing is it's about to get a lot harder for Texas. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. But I think another interesting thing about this whole David Pierce saga is he gets booted from the Sunday game against TCU for arguing about the ball hitting a runner, which I think it was pretty clear it did. And I think he probably knows it did. I think what he was arguing about and just so pissed off about was that they overturned the call, and when he asked them to look at it, they wouldn't even look at it. So I think that was what got him pissed. You guys made a call on the field. You come together as a group, which is what they did. All 4 umpires come together as a group, and they overturned the call. But then when he said, well, hold on, let's look at it and make sure this is the right call, it's a pretty pivotal moment. They're up 2-1. It's late in the game. I believe that base hit scored a run, so it would have given them a run cushion. And they wouldn't even look at it. So he lost his freaking mind. He was out on the field at the commercial break. He came back on the field after the commercial break. And finally they boot him and they suspend him for 2 games for excessive arguing, I guess is what they called it. So his first game of his suspension was against UTA. They come out and they blast UTA 11-0. The bats were amazing. The pitching was really, really good. I say, and keep this in mind, folks, we have not won a Friday night game in Big 12 play. If this team goes out tonight and beats Oklahoma in this Friday night game, Oklahoma's ranked 18th in the country right now and pretty much cruising in the Big 12. If this Texas team goes out without David Pierce tonight and finds a way to win that game against Oklahoma, I say Just promote Cam Constantine to interim head coach, and let's go win the whole damn thing. And I say that kind of lightly. For those of you that don't know, Cam Constantine is a player on the team. He's been there. This is his second season with Texas. He's a transfer from, I want to say somewhere in California. I don't know the exact school. I don't think it was USC, but anyway. So he's been playing first base coach all season. I guess he's hurt. I really don't know the backstory on that, but he did a hell of a job coaching Texas to that 11-0 victory against UTA. So I say if they can figure out how to do it 2 times in a row without David Pierce, maybe we don't need David Pierce, or maybe there's something going on with David Pierce. I don't know. It's tough, man. David Pierce has the track record of getting Texas to the College World Series. He's got them in positions where he almost went 3 times in a row. We talked about that multiple times. Not a lot of coaches in college baseball, by the way, have taken their team to the College World Series 3 years in a row. And I think the interesting thing about the fact that he almost did it for that 3rd year in a row is there was so much turnover with that team. I don't know. He's a tough one. He's a tough nut to crack, as they say. There's all kinds of rumor going around about just, and I don't want to spread rumors and crap, but anyway, he is one of the most probably complex coaching, firing, keeping discussions I've ever thought about much, if that makes sense. A lot of fans don't even think about it. They're just pissed off. They say fire. And then the other fans say, oh, no, you got to keep him because of XYZ. And there's a lot of XYZ to keep him. So I don't know. We'll see, man. It's going to be really interesting this weekend. Again, the pitching and hitting have been really good this last week, but I say let's not call it a comeback. It was TCU. It was UTA. I am cautiously optimistic that this team has maybe turned a corner, and they're going to get hot at the right time. We've seen David Pierce teams do that a lot. They tend to get hot at the right time and make it through when they shouldn't really make it through. But there are 3 really tough Big 12 matchups coming up for Texas to finish out the season, and it starts this weekend again. OU, they're 14-4 atop the Big 12, ranked 18th in the country. They have swept. I think I heard someone say they have set the OU record for Big 12 sweeps in a season. Conference series sweeps. They've done it several times this year. This is an interesting tidbit about this series as well. It has been 6 years since Texas has gone up to Oklahoma to play a series against the Oklahoma Sooners, and here's why. 2020 was the COVID year. 2022, they were supposed to go back to Norman, but I guess Oklahoma was having some really shitty weather in March, February timeframe, so they called the Texas Rangers folks and say, hey, we got shitty weather up here. We're trying to play a game. We're trying to find a place to play a game. Can we play at the ballpark? And they said, yeah. But you got to give us another series, a conference series, so we can kind of make up our money because we're going to lose money on this non-con deal you're asking us to do. I say, well, which one do you want? And they said Texas. Of course they said Texas because they probably sold a lot of tickets and a lot of beer and a lot of hot dogs, all that kind of stuff. So that is the story behind how this is Texas's first trip to Norman in baseball in 6 years. So those folks are going to be jacked up. The team's going to be jacked up. Their damn manager is a Augie Garrido disciple, Skip. There's just a lot of stuff about it's already a big series anyway. Texas doesn't like Oklahoma. Oklahoma doesn't like Texas. There's a lot on the line. I mean, if Texas could figure out a way to sweep, they're right back tied for first place. So, well, actually, they're tied for first place, but they got a tie break to be the Big 12 champ. So there's a whole lot of stuff riding on this series. So we'll see what this team can do. They start tonight at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Saturday, 4 p.m. There's a game. And this is all weather pending because I heard – who did I hear? I heard shoot, man, I talk about him all the time. He's on the Longhorn Radio Net. Craig Way Craig Way say something about on the broadcast Tuesday night, the UTA broadcast, because I was at my son's baseball game. That's what I do. He said they are looking at probably having maybe some shitty weather up there this weekend. So tentatively tonight 6:30, Saturday 4 p.m., Sunday 2 p.m. All games on ESPN Plus and the Longhorn Radio Network. And again, I got to do a pitch for the Longhorn Radio Network. I love Craig Way calling a baseball game, and he has my boy Mike Hardball Harge on there every now and again, and that's a good listen as well. For those of you that don't know, Hardball Harge has a show on 1300 AM The Zone every Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Harge is an ex-professional baseball player. That dude was a first-round draft pick out of high school, and he went to Killeen Ellison or Killeen High, one of the Killeen high schools down there in Central Texas around Fort Hood. So Hardball Harge knows a little bit about some baseball, and so it's really interesting to hear him talk about baseball. They complement each other very well. So if that's the broadcast, definitely you guys need to be listening to that. And then they go into the midweek next week against Sam Houston, and that's the last midweek for the Texas Longhorns baseball. So it'll be all weekend series after that. They've got Oklahoma this weekend, Oklahoma State next weekend. Oklahoma State, I believe, has worked themselves back into the top 25. And then they've got UCF, who is kind of a surprise early this season they're in their first Big 12 baseball season. They, at one point, just a few weeks ago, were the only Big 12 team that was ranked in the top 25. Then they got to finish up with Kansas. I think there's a lot of good baseball teams in the Big 12. I don't know how it's going to all stack up against, the other conferences. You look at like the ACC is really good. The SEC is obviously the baseball powerhouse. I don't know how all those teams compare necessarily to that, but I think there are a lot of really good ball clubs in the Big 12. So certainly winning the Big 12 this year for whoever does it would be a big deal. And Texas is in a really good position despite all the ups and downs that this team has gone through this year. And I mean, I'm talking, this has probably been like, David Pierce's worst team was just bad. The team that did not make it to the tournament, they were just not good. This team is so odd because they can be so good. And I'm talking offensively and pitching and defensively. They can be so good at times, but then other times just it's like they don't give a damn. It's like they just don't want to be there. I don't know what it is. And sometimes baseball, that's just the way it goes. Ron Washington says that's the way baseball goes sometimes, and it's just been going that way a lot for the Texas Longhorns this year. So we'll see what they can do this weekend. Again, tonight, 6:30. I'll be at a high school baseball game, but that's cool. I'll have my earbud in, and I'll be listening to that Craig Way call of that game up in Goonerville. Texas football, the big news obviously right now for Texas football is the NFL draft. The first round was last night, and Byron Murphy is picked the 16th pick overall by the Seattle Seahawks. This guy broke a really, really long streak for Texas of not having a defensive first rounder. The last defensive first rounder for the University of Texas was 2013 when Kenny Vaccaro got drafted in the first round. He was he was rated by all the scouts as the number one safety in that draft class. I think he's gone on, I believe it was the Saints. I think he's gone on to have a pretty good, nothing flashy, I don't think necessarily, but a pretty good NFL career there at safety. To me, Byron Murphy, I have always comped him to Aaron Donald, whatever the heck that dude's name is that plays for the Rams. He just has that same type of motor to me, the same type of build. The dude's 300 pounds, but you look at him, and if you don't have any scale to compare against, you would look at Byron Murphy and you wouldn't go, that dude weighs 300 pounds. He is like jacked for a 300-pound dude. And I'm talking like trim. So he is he's just like a freak athlete. And that's the only way to describe it. I watched some of the film of like that they had leading up to this draft, and you're just like, how the hell did he do that? And he was doing it against really good teams and against double teams. And he's just got a motor that never stops. So obviously Texas fans are excited about that. Then X-Worthy goes the 28th overall pick to the Chiefs, and my God, these guys lose Tyreek, who was like a big play guy, lots of speed, just explosive. Then they go and win another Super Bowl, and then they just get stronger because they go draft Xavier Worthy. I don't know. I usually don't care about the NFL that much, man. It's just to me, it's like a different game. But what the hell were the Bills thinking? Like they just let their. I saw a TikTok that was like, you just let Daddy get that much stronger. A team that's tormented you and just been the reason you haven't had that postseason success. You just let them get stronger. I mean, they basically gave them Xavier Worthy. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out, man. I think Mahomes is probably pretty excited to have a weapon like Xavier Worthy at the helm now. I think AD Mitchell also kind of got goofed by a trade or whatever type of deal. He was probably going to be a first rounder to that late first round shenanigans went off, but I think he'll probably be the first Longhorn off the board. He'll be the first player off the board in the second round tonight. And then you got T'Vondre Sweat. What's going to happen with him? Obviously, he had the issue with the DWI or DUI or whatever it's called. Just a couple of weeks ago. So that's obviously not ideal as you're going into the NFL draft. And I think he'll fall some, but how far, I don't know. And there's a few other guys that I think are gonna get drafted, but I think we're looking at probably 5-6 guys off this Texas Longhorn team that are going to get drafted, and that's just something that has not happened in a very long time at the University of Texas. So testament to Steve Sarkisian not only recruiting these guys, and I'll say Steve Sarkisian and his staff not only recruiting these guys, but recruiting them, getting them to stay, and developing them. You're almost like cutting hairs when you start talking about the difference between a first, second, and third round type guy in the NFL. So I think, man, just getting guys drafted and at the pace that it looks like he's going to start getting guys drafted in the NFL or being a part of it. I won't say, he's not the only one. Obviously, the staff is not the only one. These guys are putting in the work, making the plays, all that stuff. But again, just a testament to the type of culture and the type of program Steve Sarkisian wants to have at the University of Texas. Let's talk about this spring game, man. A spring game's usually not a big deal, and honestly, to me, spring games usually suck. They're usually a joke. The rule. You remember back in the Mac Brown days where like they always ran the opening kickoff of the spring game back for a touchdown. It was just going to happen. Like so much so that the kickoff team just kind of fell over. The second anybody touched them. It was just a thing. So they're kind of a joke. And then you look at like what Ole Miss did this year, and some of y'all are probably going to think that was cool. I thought it was absolute. I mean, they had a dunk contest. They did a 7-on-7 tournament. I think there was like a pie eating contest or some shit. Like, I mean, it was an absolute just clown show, right? And maybe that's okay, but I think it just adds to like, the spring game's kind of a joke, but I thought the spring game was pretty interesting this year. Let's talk about the three things that we talked about on this show last Friday before the spring game as the things we kind of had questions about or wanted to know about. The first thing was obviously, are we going to stay injury free? You want to come out of spring football healthy because you want these guys to then go into the summer conditioning program and be ready to go when fall camp comes around. Check. I think there was one guy that went down with maybe some minor, twisty knee or twisty ankle type stuff. But as far as I know, there has not been any serious injuries this spring. Anything that is out there is just kind of naggy stuff. They just don't want to push it. So that is absolutely great for this Texas program. The second question I had was, who is going to step up on the D-line from a depth perspective? I think the Texas staff is confident and happy with what they have in Vernon Broughton and what they have in big man, I just had his name in my mind. You know what I'm talking about. Big 95, the big man, the guy we've been talking about on this show constantly for like the last 3 years. Like this guy his body is first rounder. It's just not translating on the field. They're happy with those two guys, and I still can't think of his name. I apologize. I'll think of it at some random point in about 10 minutes probably. That's what happens when you get old. You just forget stuff, and then it just pops in your head at the stupidest time. Anyways, I think they're happy with the first two guys they got. What I think they don't know is, do we have any serious depth at all? And if we do, who are those guys? I think they were really looking for Sydir Mitchell to have a good offseason and be one of those guys. Sydir Mitchell is a guy out of high school that was already a big dude. A big dude that can move, but he was a big dude. 6'5", like 330-something pounds, I think, when they recruited him. He blew up to like 370, and if you watch the spring game, it is not working for him. He has no foot movement at all. I think he could clog stuff up in the middle pretty well, but he's not going to be anywhere near what we saw with T. Sweat and Byron Murphy from just being an active perspective. If you watched T. Sweat and Byron Murphy much last year, you just saw like bodies flying everywhere. I mean, they just like shredded the interior of most offensive linemen apart. Like it was just like a video game or something. It's just people flying around, and they were in the middle of all of it. Sydir Mitchell is not doing that at 370 pounds. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. I think Jere Bledsoe is a guy that they're pretty happy with. Super athletic guy. This is another guy, to me, kind of like in the Byron Murphy mode. I think he's 6'2", like 305, 310, something. The dude can do a standing backflip. He can stand like normal people stand and just do a damn backflip at that weight. So athletically, he's a dude. We didn't see a lot of him, or didn't see a lot of flashes in that spring game, but that's okay. A guy we did see, well, I'll talk about him in a minute. So I think that's still a question mark, and it's obvious because they're bringing in a lot of guys, a lot of these transfer portal guys in to see who they can get on board that can be some depth or maybe even start. We won't know. And then the other question I had was, can the secondary hold its own against obviously one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country? The amount of talent that Steve Sarkisian has in this 2024 wide receiver room is absolutely obscene. It is crazy how many good, talented receivers this team has. And so, I mean, it is no secret. You know, the secondary has been a weakness for Texas defense for a while now. It just hasn't been great. We'll talk about that a little later on as well. But could they do it? We'll talk about it. Let's talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about players that popped in this spring game. You can't have this conversation without starting off with Arch Manning. 355 yards, 3 touchdowns, kind of a complete opposite of what we saw from Arch Manning last year in the spring game, where he just didn't. I mean, he made good decisions, but there was no wow factor. And you had the knucklehead saying, "See, I told you, the only reason he's a 5-star is because he's a Manning, da-da-da-da-da. He sucks. We wouldn't want him, even though we did want him. But when we didn't get him, now we didn't want him." All that type of shit. That's all we heard after the spring game last year. Now he does so well in the spring game that all these same type of people are saying, "Oh, it's just a spring game," and "Oh, y'all didn't cover nobody," and blah. I don't give a shit. He threw for 355 yards and 3 touchdowns. He made throws, made all kinds of throws, made deep throws, made intermediate throws, made short throws. A lot of accuracy in all those throws. So Arch is my number one guy that popped. And then I think young Trey Owens, man, the guy out of Cy-Fair, true freshman quarterback, who, by the way, is just a big-bodied kid, 6'5", 225 pounds, big kid. 288 yards and 3 touchdowns of his own, and he looked way ahead of what Arch looked like last year to me, like light years ahead. Just the way he can, and I'll say this about both these guys, their pocket presence was absolutely amazing in this scrimmage. They climbed the pocket well. They kept their eyes downfield. They were able to deliver the ball when they climbed the pocket. I mean, this is like just stuff we haven't seen at Texas in a while, man. To have backup quarterbacks that can handle the offense and produce the way those two guys can, if you're Steve Sarkisian, it's a blessing. If you're a Texas Longhorn fan, it's a blessing to have that type of talent. So those two guys for me, 1 and 2. I think number 3 for me was Ryan Wingo, the freshman 5-star wide receiver. He is a big kid, and it's hard to tell when these guys when you see film on them playing against high school kids. All these guys look big, so it's hard to really tell how big this guy really. Man, he is big. He's big. He's got a ton of speed. And he is really good adjusting to the football. That catch he made down close to the end zone where, the throw was kind of off. He let him – I think he thought he was going more to the corner, and I think it was Arch, kind of let him off more to the sideline about middle ways through the end zone instead of back into the back of the end zone. But he tracked it perfectly and made a great, great catch over the shoulder for his second touchdown of the scrimmage. So he obviously had a big day. Jonte Cook was a guy that I was really impressed with his hands. There was a lot of catches he made where they were contested, but he was able to squeeze the ball. There was one on the sideline where I thought it might have been an interception. I know the DB got his hands on it, and he just squeezed the ball and took it. And to do that with guys that can throw the ball with the type of velocity those guys are throwing the ball with, just takes some outstandingly strong hands, and he's got that. Let's flip over to the defensive side. I thought edge Colton Vasek was by far the most impressive on the defensive side of the ball for Texas. First of all, physically, this dude is impressive. And again, we saw him if you care about Texas football, if you follow Texas high school football, you saw his Westlake team. They went to 2 straight state championships, and he was a guy that was on the other side of a defensive line with Ethan Burke, starter defensive end for the University of Texas last season, and been very productive in his short career at Texas. So can you imagine those two dudes in a high school football game? That's why they went to 2 straight and won 2 straight state championships. That was a big part of it. But anyway, he is physically impressive. They have nicknamed him Baby Bosa or Mini Bosa or Tiny Bosa or Paquito Bosa. I don't know, something along those lines. And he has that type of body. This dude, by the time he's done at Texas, if he applies himself, is going to be jacked and scary jacked, like the Bosa brothers. And I think he has the type of twitch and length. He's 6'5", 200 and I think he's 235, 240 pounds on the roster, but he has like these amazingly long arms. He's going to be a problem, and he is twitchy. He is definitely, my opinion, the only guy on that defensive line that's probably more twitchy on the edge is probably Colin Simmons. And Colin Simmons is the type of dude that, you just don't see. There's just not a lot of Colin Simmonses. Guys with that kind of size and that kind of length and that kind of speed. So I am, and Colton Vasek was hurt. I think Colton Vasek probably makes it on the field some last year if he's not having these naggy back injuries like he did last season. That dude is going to play a lot this year, and he's gonna wreck some damn shop, and people are going to be like, "Who the hell is that dude?" Well, that's Colton Vasek. The other guy on the defensive side of the ball that I was really impressed with, and I've always been really impressed with, and I think he just got overshadowed at Duncanville High School by the aforementioned Colin Simmons. Alex January, defensive tackle. He's a well put together young man for I think he's 6'5", 325, something like that. But he doesn't look it. He does not look. Man, it is crazy. These kids that are the size they are, and they have the statistics that the specifications that they have, but they're not fat. Like, I mean, I'm not saying he's a damn Greek god or anything, but for a dude that big, he is very well put together, and he can be, to me, I think that guy might be our next, in the pipeline, big time defensive tackle, because he gets in there and shit's flying around. Like, that's what you want. You want your interior guys to just disrupt everything, because if you can disrupt the interior, you mess up a lot of plays. Like, just right there, right off the bat, you're blowing shit up like that, the way T Sweat and Byron Murphy did last season, that's what you want. And Alex January is the type of dude that can do that. I think he's gonna find himself on the field some this year. I think he might be an answer to some of that question. Do we have anybody that can step up from a depth perspective? How that guy was a 3-star, I just don't understand. I mean, I get you can't give everybody a 5-star, and everybody can't be a 5-star or a 4-star. But I am really perplexed at how Alex January was a 3-star, because I think that dude is going to be pretty damn good. We'll see. Let's talk about that secondary. So I got tagged. Our friends over at SEC Sports Unfiltered, Chris Phillips, tagged me. He tags me every once in a while when him and his guys are talking about Texas. And which, by the way, they do a really good job of covering like all the SEC teams. I don't know how he does it. If y'all don't know, Chris Phillips was a Gamecock, right? And that's how he kind of came up and built a business for himself doing what I'm doing. He's way better at it than I am, obviously. But he was a Gamecock guy. And then all of a sudden he switches and he's SEC Unfiltered. He brings in some other guys and they just start covering all the SEC sports. He does a really good job of not being biased and doing. I don't know how he does it. Like, if I ever go on that show, all you're going to hear about, and I have been on his show and he's been on my show, all you're going to hear about is how great Texas is. We're about to win the SEC and everything. Not really. I'm not going to do that. But anyway, the point is Chris does a really good job. Y'all should check him out. He tagged me in something the other day where they were talking about the secondary right after this spring game, and I don't even know the guy that was actually talking. I should probably find out. But anyway, he was talking about, man, they were just kind of absent a few times, and they were. So the question is, should Texas fans be worried about the secondary? You got to have PTSD from last year, because there were some times last year where the secondary almost got us beat. And I don't even just lay it all on the secondary. The passing game almost got us beat. I think you cannot talk about that semifinal game against UW without saying the passing game for Washington and the inability of us to stop it at all definitely cost us that game. So there's that PTSD. There's this lackluster performance in the spring game where you had some busted coverages. You had some guys that maybe weren't in busted coverage, but just flat out got beat. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a valid question, but my answer is no. I don't think that we should worry about this Texas secondary in 2024 until they give us a reason to worry in 2024. There's tons of talent on this Texas offense. We've talked about how good the wide receiver room is. We talked more about the two backup quarterbacks today than we did Quinn Ewers, because Quinn Ewers wasn't even in the game but for like 5 seconds. He went out there to warm up, basically. So there's obviously talent at the quarterback position. There's obviously talent in that wide receiver room. They probably played against better talent in that spring game than they'll play against in all but maybe 2 of the games they play next season, regular season games. So yeah, I am not worried about that from that perspective. I think the other thing you got to look at, they brought in a lot of new guys, and we lost some guys. To the transfer portal that were heavily involved in the secondary last year. We lost some guys to hopefully the NFL out of that secondary. There's been a lot of new faces in the secondary this spring. So they've had a very short time to learn the defense, learn whatever little nuances got put into that defense during the spring. And they haven't played with each other that much. So if you kind of step back a little bit and you think about all the communication that has to take place and all the way these guys try to disguise coverages, and if that communication doesn't happen, you're going to miss. Somebody's going to be thinking one way. We're going to, this guy's going to think you're going to zig, but you actually zag because y'all didn't come together to communicate that very well. There's going to be busted coverages, right? So, again, I think that's a problem that you can fix. The other thing, spring games are kind of built for offense. Like, nobody wants to go to a spring game and see the score be 3-0. So I think the rules are slightly tailored to favor the offense in these spring games. You can't tackle anybody really. You definitely can't tackle a quarterback. We saw a couple times during that scrimmage where I think the defensive back could have had an absolute death shot on a wide receiver that caught the ball and ran for a touchdown and just didn't do it. And I think that's just part of those rules, part of that thought process. We're not going to go out here and kill our own guys. So am I worried about the secondary? I am not. I think it's ultra talented. I think once the starting rotation or the starting group gets solidified in fall camp and they really sort of tighten up that communication with each other, I think it's going to be the best Texas secondary we've seen in a really long time. So no, let's not worry about that, Texas fans, until they give us a reason to worry about it in 2024. That spring game, not indicative of what you're going to see, I don't think, out of this Texas secondary. Let's talk about the transfer portal real quick. And some of these are old names: Samaj Burrell, Billy Walton, Peyton Kirkland, Jamon Tapp. But after the spring game, Terrence Brooks, who was a starter at some point last year, had to start games because of injury, and played really well. I thought Terrence Brooks had some really good moments last season. He decides he's gonna enter into the transfer portal. I don't know why. My speculation is that he thinks he should be the starter, and maybe that's not what the conversation was after the spring game. I don't know what types of conversations these guys have, and I don't know if Coach Sark goes out and smacks a freaking 2-deep up on the wall and says, "This is after spring. This is our 2-deep." I don't know, but that's my assumption. Or what he could have been doing is trying to get some more money, and maybe Coach Sark said, "You're just not worth that much money." I really don't know. But that'll be a loss, right? Because, again, I think Terrence Brooks was solid for Texas. He looked pretty – he got beat a couple times in the spring game, and maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. Another guy is DB Austin Jordan. This is a junior. He's been with the program for a while. Has played some, has started some earlier in his career. He's in the transfer portal. So there's two DBs right there that have jumped out. Incoming-wise – we talked about it on the show last week, man. The defensive line, they've got to get better there. So they start bringing in all these guys for visits. Arizona defensive line, Bill Norton, he just committed to Texas. So there's one. TCU defensive lineman Dominic Williams is another guy that just came for a visit just the other day, and apparently it was an absolute great visit. He's no longer considering Oklahoma. Some recruiting analyst, I think it might have been Hayes Fawcett. Clearly, Texas is the leader of this deal. His words, not mine. But he is still going to go on a trip to LSU, I believe, and Missouri, maybe. Anyway, he's taking other trips, so it's not a lock for Texas yet. But certainly Texas has to feel like they're in a pretty good space after that visit. I believe that was Wednesday night and Thursday night of this week, or Thursday of this week. Another guy, Jay Toa, he was leaving UCLA, and then decided he's going to go back to UCLA. But Texas was going to bring him in for a visit. And by the way, this whole like hold your team hostage thing to get more money, to me it's just like the next phase of the ruination of college football. And I know there's young people that are going to say, "You're old, shut the fuck up." Like, I get it, man. I understand why people hold the position that they hold, that the players should be able to always put themselves in a better position. And I don't necessarily agree with that in principle, but I think we've got to do a better job of like the rules. But the point I really want to make about this is not that these guys are doing this, but they're negotiating to get more money. So they have no intention of actually entering the transfer portal. They leak it that they're going to do it, and then they let the coaches come to them and give them more money, right? But then the tweets they send out after all this, I've seen them multiple times over multiple seasons now. 100% locked in. I'm where my family is. This is home. No, it ain't, dude. You just proved it wasn't, because you held them hostage. Families don't hold each other hostage. You don't hold the people you live with at your home hostage for more money. You're not 100% locked in if you are threatening to leave to go into the transfer portal so you can hopefully leverage that for some more NIL money. So, like, I get it. I get but let's just let it be what it is. Like, yeah, I went into the transfer portal because I wanted more money and I got it and I'm going to stay here. You quit with all the happy Philly shit after you get what you want. You aren't locked in. You're not at home and you don't care about the family because you just leverage that to make more money. I'm going to digress on the whole transfer portal thing. We've had shows where we talk so much about it. And man, it hasn't happened yet for me, but I am certainly an old school lover of college football, and it is starting to get to the point where I'm kind of sick of it. I don't know. We'll have to see. So there's Texas football, man. Again, I think it was a successful spring. No major injuries. We got to see a lot of young guys. We got to see a glimpse of some of the guys that have been on the roster and what they can do. I'm excited about this 2024 football season. One last thing before we close the show today. I kind of got back into I started a new old hobby. If you ask my wife, she would call me a hobby whore, which means I get bored with stuff and I pick up new stuffs. And I have done that me and my wife have been married almost 25 years. We've been together, almost 27 years, something like that. And I have had so many hobbies. She could probably name them because it irritates her. I can't name them because I don't think they exist. But I've had a lot of hobbies, folks. But I picked one up recently again that I used to have as a young middle schooler, junior higher. I was a huge, as much as I could be at that age. So I didn't have a lot of means, but I was big time into baseball cards. Collecting cards. And obviously I got away from it over the years. I've done it a little bit, not anything, big deal. I'm missing still parts of my collection that I'm pretty positive I had. I just don't know where the hell they're at. They're in boxes somewhere. So that'll kind of personify where I got in my card collection journey. But the other day I was flipping through TikTok and I saw a guy open up a pack of old, Topps baseball cards, like a pack of 1989 Topps baseball cards. And I was like, motherfucker, I could smell, when I was watching him open that pack, I could smell what those cards smelled like. And so my dumbass got really nostalgic and I ordered all kinds of boxes of 1980s and early 90s boxes of baseball cards. And I've been having a badass time over the last few days, digging into some of those packs and just kind of reliving my junior high days of oh my God, I got a Ken Griffey Jr. I did get a Ken Griffey Jr. I've gotten Randy Johnson rookie. I mean, it's been an absolute blast. So I've been doing that. And if you follow me on TikTok, you've probably seen me open up some packs, man. You've probably seen some of those videos where I do some packs. So if that's something you're interested in, I used to wonder about my kids because they would watch kids do shit on YouTube, watch kids play video games on YouTube. And I was always like, why don't you just go play the video game yourself? What's fun about watching the kid play the video game on YouTube? And I get it now. I am obsessed with watching these dudes open packs on TikTok just to see what comes out of the pack. I don't know if you guys are like that. If you are like that, check me out, man. Follow me on TikTok at Horn Takes. I do packs throughout the day, most days, and I've got millions of them. There's literally in front of me right now, probably close to 100 boxes of whole boxes of old baseball cards in packs. So anyway, I also ordered some new stuff. I love the old school cards, but I also ordered some new stuff. I ordered a few boxes of these. They're called monster boxes from Topps. The 2024 Topps Heritage, which is kind of the first thing you need to know about card collecting if you haven't done it in a while is now there's multiple series for the same year now. And I when I say series, I'm not talking about series 1, series 2 like we used to have back in the day. I'm talking about there's Topps now. There's Topps Heritage, which is kind of like the same guys on these throwback looking cards. There's Topps freaking Chrome, and man, it is insane. They have a holiday set that they do every year. What else do they have? They have like they have one set that's like catered towards kids. I can't remember what it's called, but the cards are all shiny and shit, and there's like all these little Martian insert things. I mean, it is insane, and it is so confusing. When I was a kid, you open up the damn thing, and you knew by their name if it was a good card. It's not like that anymore. There's like all these freaking variations of cards. There's like all these refractor cards, foil cards. Signature cards are easy. You're like, that makes sense. I pull a card, it's got a signature. That's cool. There's numbered cards now. There's short print cards now. I am still trying to study up and figure out what the is going on when I open a pack of cards, and if what I just opened was good or not. And the crazy, and the other thing is like the value of these cards. If you collected cards if you're my age, I'm 46, I'll be 47 in a few months. You used to get the Beckett magazine, right, and look it up, and you might see some cards that were worth like $5 or $6 that you had. This shit now, some of these cards are worth like $35,000. I mean, it is crazy. And the boxes of cards, there's dudes, and all these guys are like in their probably mid to late 20s. They do all these box break things online. If you don't know what a box break is, you can Google it. The short of it is they buy all these boxes. They sell spots for like certain teams is usually how it works. And they open up all these cases in which they've sold spots and make a shit ton of money. Plus, they make their money back for buying the cases, plus some for their time, right? And it's usually a lot. And then they open up all this stuff and they send it to the people. If you pick the Falcons and you got a Falcon football card, it goes to, even if you open 50, if you got 50 cards out of those cases that were Falcons, they would all go to this Falcon guy. So it's a way to get in and get some expensive cards at a relatively cheap price point, right? But the problem is some people don't get anything. Sometimes your hit is not a good hit, and that's a new word too. A hit is just a good card, right? But some of these boxes are like $1,000 for like 4 cards. I mean, the game has changed since the last time I had anything to do with sports card collecting. So, man, it's tough for me. I don't know, man. I'm scared. Like I want to get a good pack like that, but I'm afraid if I spend like $1,000 on a pack of cards, I'm gonna get the box that sucks. And I can't do anything with it. So I don't know. It's crazy now. Check us out if you're in any way interested in card collecting, because I do a little bit of content on that now on TikTok. That's the show today, folks. We're going to get out of here. We're going to go check out some high school baseball. Hopefully the boys get it done tonight. We'll win that district championship, be the 1 seed out of our district, headed into the playoffs. Join us next week. We'll talk about this Texas baseball team. Obviously, this OU series. What happens? What did we like? What did we not like? Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Follow and subscribe, folks. Won't cost you guys anything, and I sure would appreciate the support. Occasionally, people email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with some questions. I like to answer questions on the show, but check me out. Email me there with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys have a good weekend. Get hooked, baby.